Yeah, we need to go live over here. Here we go. Let me just. All right. Hey, Tanika. Hey. Good evening. Good morning. Good day. Good evening, wherever you are. And thank you for joining me. This is day number 9. For those of you who are on for the first time, this is day number 9 of 45 days of going live that I have agreed to. First of all, initially with some trepidation, 45 is a big number. 45 is a big number for these, but I'm actually beginning to really enjoy it, and I'm grateful for the responses and the recommendations and suggestions and comments that are coming in. I sent out requests via email and social media for ideas of things to talk to. So actually, what we're going to have to do is begin to be a little bit more organized. Okay, a little bit more organized about for the next 36 days. So, like I said, today is day number 9, and it's a good day to transition because 9 is my favorite number. It's my favorite number because I was born on the 9th of a month. I'm not sure that number 9 has ever brought me anything particular other than my having been born on the 9th, but it's my favorite number. It's one of my favorite numbers. And so today, yeah, is a good time to make a transition. Yesterday, I talked about the Women's Leadership Circle and some of the programs that we do, in particular the monthly S Cubed. And I'm going to talk some more about those as we go along. But today's a very special day. It's a very significant day for me, my people. I've told you I've come from this beautiful little island, tiny little island, and beautiful tiny little island with some painful history, and today is of particular significance. And so since people keep asking me to talk about my story, let me tell you part of my story. Today is the 1st of August. It's called Emancipation Day, where I come from. And it's, for some people, it's a celebration. I personally have a little bit of significant difficulty with it, because Emancipation Day is in 1834, on the 1st of August, the British emancipated the Africans that they had enslaved in the Caribbean. And emancipated is really actually, it's relative, because the same people were made to continue to work for 4 years, up to 4 years, and some longer than that, in something called the apprenticeship system. So although the British signed the document that said that the enslaved Africans are free and can go about their lives, they didn't really set them free. And furthermore, the British government borrowed a lot of money, the equivalent of some billions. I think I saw somewhere some billions of dollars it would be in today's money, to reimburse the enslavers, the British enslavers, the business people. And if you look around England, you will see that universities, colleges, all the old businesses, companies, corporations, banks, all of them, pretty much, well, all of them which have survived until now, they made their money, a lot of their money was with the Atlantic slave trade in African bodies, in African human beings. And anyhow, the British government reimbursed these people for the loss of their property, loss of their commercial property, but did not think to reimburse or to compensate the African enslaved, formerly enslaved. So, and kept them working to help them pay off this thing, to ease the burden on the enslavers. And so I have difficulty with today. I really have difficulty. My people were not freed. And if you think about it, some people think today we still are not, because they're still colonies. And, we went from being enslaved to being apprentices, and then to being colonized. And the colonial mentality still maintains. And so I have difficulty with it. I have serious difficulty with it. And I work against it. What can I tell you? I work against it. That's my personality. I work against the things I don't like. I think I was born to do stuff like that. Actually, I think I was born to go to sea. I wanted to be a sailor when I was growing up. My father had boats. I told you that in an earlier one. I wanted to go to sea. And my father said, no, sea's not for girls. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. But my mother, who is one of the reasons I am this human being that I am, was much more adventurous with her children than my father was, much more adventurous. And so I begged my father, can't tell you how many times, please let me go on one of the boats. And he wouldn't. They were freight boats, they were carrying cargo. And, I totally understand his concern for his daughter, 13, 14, 15 years old, on a, on a cargo ship with a bunch of sailors, and then going on land among stevedores and longshoremen. And I know those people well. My family is a sailing family. But so one day my father had to go off to England on business. And I had I think I was 14 or 15. I had a job for the summer. And anyhow, my father took off and went off to England for business. And I can't remember if my mother called the office or she came by and she said, your father has gone to England. And the boat, one of the boats, Dapper, that one was called, is leaving this afternoon. Do you still want to go? Because the boats used to go up and down the islands. If you look at the map, you'll see that Montserrat is about halfway, about midway in the Caribbean. There's Cuba, and you go all the way down to Trinidad. Montserrat is about midway. And these particular boats used to go south down to Trinidad and once in a while to Guyana. My mother said, you want to go? And I said, yes. My sister, so I quit my job. I told my boss, I'm going sailing. I'm going on a boat. And we went down to Trinidad, had a whale of a time, loved it. And Trinidad doesn't normally have hurricanes, but they had a freak storm that particular time. And the captain, Captain Furlong, woke us up in the middle of the night and took the boat out to sea to avoid having it run aground and so on. And I just had the time of my life. I watched the bow of the boat go under the water and come back up, and I loved it. Captain Furlong was terrified because he thought, what if these two young girls got drowned? But we had a wonderful time. Then my dad came back and called the agent and said, send them home. And we came home. So my dad said, no going to sea for you. And that is very typical of how women, girls, have always been considered. Not just that we are delicate and can't handle certain things, but my father was the more modern version of the state, the philosophy, if you will, the culture, the traditions that had women be protected from certain things. And so when I think of my life as a woman and I compare and contrast it with the way women have lived, and today especially, I'm thinking through all of these things, not being allowed to do what I really want to do, not being allowed to go where I really wanted to go, not just because I was a child, but also because I was a girl. I see parallels between being a woman and being an African, being of African heritage, because the fact of the matter is the enslavement of women was a reality. In some countries, it still is. It still very much is. Women are bought and sold, exchanged for land and money, given away in exchange for a debt that a family owes, sent off to live in somewhere to work for the family, are married off to somebody because for status or for some that the father determines. There are still countries in the world where young girls are married off, 12 and 13 and 14 years old. 12 and 13, 11 years old, and so on, are married off very often to men much older than they, with no choice in the matter whatsoever. And of course, in those situations, and in this part of the world, in the Western part of the world, not so very long ago, women were required only to do as you were told, keep quiet, don't show up, don't make too much noise, keep the house, do the domestic work, and nothing else. I remember a couple of months ago, I was doing some research for a documentary that we're working on called Of Course Women Can. And although I know this history, I had not known that in England in the 1800s, that's 100 and something years ago, women were not allowed to go to the library. So even though women were expected to be able to at least, keep conversation, make conversation with their husbands, clients and guests and whoever, women are not allowed to go to the library. So, for example, the Bronte sisters used to have their brother go to the library to borrow books so they could, read. And then, of course, they wrote some of the longest lasting, most impactful novels ever written by British writers. So my work with women, I take my work with women really, really very seriously. And I think that, in these last few days doing this series, and people have been talking courage and strength and so on, and I think that perhaps the courage that I would have preferred at one time to have, the courage I would have used to navigate my way and keep myself safe on the sea, I put it into my work. I know how important it is to be safe. I have done a lot of work in helping women be safe, mentally, prepare themselves and develop confidence in themselves to do the things that keep them safe, to develop the relationships that are safe, to avoid the relationships that are unsafe. And I just think it really is important. One of the reasons I started the Women's Leadership Circle is because I think it is really, really important that women begin to use our courage in different ways. Everybody says it. All the things say women are strong, women are courageous. Yes, we know. And I think that we are at the point where women need to pull out our courage, to stand up for each other, stand up for a safer, better world. And so the Women's Leadership Circle is intended to pull women. It pulls women in from all around the world so that we could stand up for and support one another. I told you in a couple of episodes back, I talked about how, having come from the Caribbean, working in Phoenix. I come from Montserrat, which had, when I was growing up, 10, 12,000 people. And I come to work in Phoenix, which has 5 million people. And I find myself transmitting to these young girls exactly the same things women, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, other people's grandmothers, mothers, grandfathers taught me. Yeah, I brought this here. There are young women that I know now who were children when I was working with them, who remember some of the things that I did. I stood up for these women, these children, because, let me give you a quick example. There were times when these are children who had really, really painful and difficult childhoods. And they were girls. We worked with girls. And there were instances where at 12, 13 years old, these children were already addicted to drugs. And so in addition to the behavioral issues and keeping them safe and so on, there was the addiction to deal with. And on more than one occasion, we had girls run away. And we get a call, Miss Shirley, can you please come and get me? Or somebody would call and say, I see so-and-so down there on this particular street. And I'd get in my car and go. There were times when I'd get in my car and I'd call and say, listen to me, I'm going to this particular address. Then I'd get there and I'd pick up my phone again and call, listen, I'm going in there. If you don't hear from me in 15 minutes, call the police. And there's a 13 or 14-year-old girl who needed somebody to be courageous for her, stand up for her, pull her up. And I went and did that. I got to do that. I developed that courage because I grew up in a place where I was safe. I grew up safe. I grew up not having to feel afraid. And part of what I really, really focus on the Women's Leadership Circle is women doing that for one another. We have different kinds of courage, just like there are different kinds of intelligences. And we talked about different wisdoms the other day, and we'll talk about it some more. There are different kinds of courage. And so what we get to do as women is exchange, if you will, those courages. So I stand up for you where I feel strong, and you stand up for me where you feel strong and I'm not so strong. All of the surveys and studies and research done, everywhere you look, tell us that women say that what's important to us from all over the world is connection and community with other women. because we work together in ways differently to how men work together. And although we're living in a system that is designed by men, for the way men do things. We are part of this, and we are having to transform and find our way and keep ourselves safe and alive and keep our world safe and alive. And one of the things we get to do is stand up for each other, exchange courage. So I am not afraid to go pick up a 13-year-old girl out of the worst part of town where her life is in danger. But I have to tell you, I'll be afraid to bring up children. And that's a whole different kind of courage. Yes. So we get to do these things. And that is what the Women's Leadership Circle does. That is what we do. We pool our gifts, our talent, our wisdoms, our courages, and support one another. So I have no reservations whatsoever inviting people to join us with the Women's Leadership Circle. The Women's Leadership Circle is a circle. In a circle, energy is contained. It moves around, and the people within the circle are stronger for being part of the circle because the energy doesn't dissipate. It moves around and it strengthens people as it stays. It strengthens, it builds. And the strength that women need to do all the things that women must do comes through women working together, being together, circling up together. So I'm inviting you again. That's part of my job. That's part of why I'm doing this over the next 45 days. And I was pushed out to do this because again, I'm not afraid to speak. Yes, I'm not afraid to speak. And some of my partners are less afraid. In fact, some studies were done. A study was done, not one, several studies over the years, especially in the United States, have found that some people would rather die than speak in public. I don't have that problem, partly because of my parents and partly because of where I came from. And, I think it's really, really, especially when we're talking about mothers and children. If you look at one of the programs we offer through the Women's Leadership Circle is called S Cubed, and it's precisely intended to support mothers in the situations with children, like I spoke about, because not all mothers have their children taken into care because they are bad mothers or because they are they neglect or abuse their children. Sometimes poverty and lack and poor education and poor access to resources makes that difference, puts them at risk. And their children go into care, like I've had to deal with many in the organization I worked with. And S Cubed, I created S Cubed with 2 other women so that we could support women who find themselves in that situation. Because we have that kind of courage, that kind of information, that kind of knowledge that they need. And I can tell you some of these women are women who they become your ride or die because they have a different kind of courage and they're not afraid to use it, to apply it to support somebody who needs. So have a look at the website. It's shirleyosborne.com. You will see on the home page, it says the Women's Leadership, the WLC. It has the monthly and it has S Cube. Check them out and come join us. Come join the Women's Leadership Circle. We are looking for 1,000 women to begin with, just so you know. Yes, we're looking for 1,000 women to begin with because there is strength in numbers. And the model that we are thinking of is Eve Ensler is one. She has 1 billion rising. There's 1 million women. And our idea is that we all get to work on different aspects of this. And we get to remind men that they do so much better when women are doing better. They do so much better. So much pressure off them. And so much support that they get when women are free to develop our gifts and talents and contribute them to our families, our communities, our corporations, our countries. So shirleyosborne.com, go have a look, check it out, share it, talk to people about it, and come join the Women's Leadership Circle. The Women's Leadership Circle is $50. It's $5 a month, $50 a year, $5 a month. And we do trainings and coaching, and we do these 2 programs, the monthly and S Cubed, and have a wonderful time in the meantime. So thank you all very, very much. Tomorrow is day number 10, and tomorrow I'm going to be on round about 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock Pacific time. I have a lot of online work during the morning, and I should be done around about 1 o'clock. So I just slip right into it afterwards. So I will see you tomorrow. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful day, pleasant evening, or lovely night, sweet dreams, rest well. Take good care.